In the hot, heavy fall of 1859, in a small, out-of-the-way village called Meow Creek, Louisiana, something happened that still sounds almost impossible. A 7-year-old black boy named Samuel Carter became the heart of one of the strangest and most frightening medical stories ever written. Down in the South, before the Civil War, Dr. Elizabeth Monroe was the only doctor in the whole area who had gone to a real medical school. Most people still relied on old-time healers and midwives. She kept 2 thick leather journals full of notes about this little boy, notes that described things no doctor back then could explain. On the outside, Samuel looked like any other child. He was small and thin, with deep brown skin and big dark eyes that hardly ever blinked. But inside his head was a kind of understanding that scared grown-ups. Over the next 7 scary months, 9 people died in ways nobody could figure out right after they had spent time with Samuel. Every single one of them was found with their eyes wide open, like they had seen something too awful to believe in their last seconds. Samuel said he heard voices coming from the nearby swamp. Those voices told him secrets, showed him things that were hidden, and warned him when someone was about to die. He knew facts that no child, especially one who had never been to school, should know. He could describe the inside of the human body in perfect detail. He knew about sicknesses before anyone felt sick. He even knew private dreams that people had never told a soul. Quick break. Thank you so much for watching. Please hit that subscribe button and drop a quick comment telling us what city or state you're watching from. We love knowing where our viewers are. Okay, back to the story. Most of the official papers from that time were lost or burned during the Civil War, but Dr. Monroe's 2 journals were hidden in the attic of her old house and stayed safe for more than 100 years. What she wrote in those pages makes us wonder just how far the human mind can really go, and it raises questions science still can't answer. This is also the story of a black child whose gifts terrified white people in power. His brilliance shook the very idea that black people were less than. His life reminds us how many gifted black children were silenced, sold away, or destroyed just because they were too smart for the world they were born into. If you're enjoying this one, please subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss a new story. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We read every single one. Samuel Carter was born in the spring of 1852 on the Whitmore Plantation, a huge cotton farm in Ascension Parish, Louisiana. His mother, Esther Carter, worked inside the big house. Even though it was against the law for enslaved people to learn to read, Esther had taught herself. In the evenings, behind the kitchen, she would draw letters in the dirt with a stick and whisper them too little. Samuel. His father's name was never written down anywhere. He had been sold to another plantation before Samuel turned to. Esther never talked about him, but some nights Samuel would wake up and see his mother sitting by the window, crying quietly as she looked out into the dark. When Samuel was 4, Esther started coughing and never got better. The plantation owner, Robert Whitmore, wouldn't pay for a doctor for a slave. He made her keep working even when she could barely stand. At night, Samuel would sit next to her bed, holding her hand. One night he said, in a very grown-up voice, "Mama, the sickness is growing in your chest, like roots spreading out. The voices in the swamp say it will take you before the cotton blooms again." 3 months later, in February 1856, Esther died. She coughed blood into rags that 4-year-old Samuel tried to wash clean for her at her burial. While everyone else sang and cried, Samuel stood perfectly still and didn't shed a tear. When someone asked why, he answered, "She's still here. She talks to me now, just like the voices in the swamp. She says she's free at last." After that, the other enslaved people on the plantation started to fear the little boy. They said there was something ancient in his eyes, something that didn't belong in a child. Old Jeremiah, the oldest man on the place, told everyone Samuel had been born with a caul over his face, a thin membrane some babies are born with. In the old stories, that meant the child could see into both worlds, the living and the dead. That boy got the sight, Jeremiah warned. He knows things folks ain't supposed to know while they still breathing. The owner, Robert Whitmore, noticed how unusual Samuel was, too, but for different reasons. The child was simply too bright. At 5 years old, Whitmore caught him drawing in the dirt not stick figures, but a perfect picture of a human heart, with every part carefully labeled in neat handwriting. "Where did you learn to read and write, boy?" Whitmore shouted, angry and afraid at the same time. Samuel looked straight at him with those calm, dark eyes and said, "The voices teach me. They put pictures in my head, and I draw them. They say the body is just a house, and when the house breaks, the person inside has to move out." That answer scared Whitmore more than anything. A black child born a slave knowing more than he did. It turned everything he believed about the world upside down. If a little enslaved boy could be this smart without any schooling, then the whole excuse for slavery fell apart. In the summer of 1856, when Samuel was only 4.5, Robert Whitmore decided he had to get rid of the boy. He sold Samuel to a passing slave trader named Cyrus Blackwood. Samuel was ripped away from the only home and people he had ever known, and put on a steamboat headed north along the Mississippi River. The trader thought he could sell Samuel for a very high price, maybe to a rich family who wanted an interesting child, or even to a medical school that studied unusual cases. But Samuel never reached the auction block while the boat stopped in Meow Creek. The trader, Cyrus Blackwood, suddenly fell violently ill. He had terrible seizures and died within hours, bleeding from his nose and ears. Samuel stood quietly in the corner of the room the whole time, watching without moving or blinking. When the sheriff asked the boy what happened, Samuel said only, "He hurt children. The voices told me what he did. They said his time was finished." Later, people looked into Blackwood's past and found something horrible. Over the last 5 years, many enslaved children he had bought had died or vanished. Some were called runaways, some were said to have drowned, some got sick out of nowhere. Samuel had known the truth about the man, truth no one else had been brave enough to uncover. With the trader dead and no papers proving who owned Samuel, the 7-year-old boy was suddenly, technically, free. Of course, being free didn't mean much for a black child. Alone in Louisiana in 1856, the local orphanages wouldn't take a black child. No family wanted him. He was too strange, too smart, and too young to work in the end. The only person willing to take him in was Dr. Elizabeth Monroe. She was very unusual herself, a woman who had studied medicine up north in Philadelphia and had come back to Louisiana to practice. She brought Samuel into her home, gave him a room, and started writing down everything she learned about the quiet little boy who seemed to know things no one could possibly know. And that's when the real terror in Meow Creek began. To practice medicine, even though most people thought a woman had no business doing a man's job. She had money and land left to her by her father, so she didn't have to answer to anyone, quietly, but without apology. She hated slavery and did what she could to push back against it. When word reached her about the little black boy who had been standing in the room when the slave trader, Cyrus Blackwood, dropped dead, Dr. Monroe's curiosity took over. She asked the sheriff to bring Samuel to her house. The moment she looked into those deep, steady eyes, something shifted inside her. She felt wonder, a touch of fear, and a fierce need to keep this child safe from a world that would surely try to break him. "What's your name, son?" she asked gently. "Samuel Carter," he answered, never looking away. "My mama named me Samuel because it means God has heard," she always said. "I was born to hear things nobody else can hear and to know things nobody else is supposed to know. The voices started talking to me before I even learned words to talk back. Dr. Monroe prided herself on being a woman of science. She believed in what she could see, touch, and prove. Ghosts and old swamp stories weren't part of her world. Yet nothing about this child fit the rules she had been taught. He spoke like a grown scholar. He could name every bone and organ in the body, better than most doctors twice her age. And when he talked about the voices, he sounded perfectly sane, just certain. She made him an offer no one else in Louisiana would have made to a black child in 1856. "You can live here with me," she said, "not as a servant, not as some kind of experiment on display. You'll eat at my table, sleep in a real bed, and I'll teach you to read and write properly. In return, I'd like to write down what you know and what you can do. I want to understand it. And if you ever want to leave, I'll help you go wherever you choose. No chains, no questions." Samuel studied her face for a long time, the way children usually don't. "The voices say you're different," he said at last. "They say you look at people and see people, not property. They say you're not afraid to learn things that scare everybody else. I'll stay, but you need to know people who carry hate in their hearts, people who hurt others and think they'll never pay for it. They don't stay around me very long. I don't make it happen. I just hear when their time is up. Sometimes the voices hurry it along. Most people would have backed away right then." Dr. Monroe only leaned in closer. She had read about child prodigies who could play piano the first time. They touched the keys or do complicated math in their heads. Samuel was something else entirely. This wasn't just a bright mind. This felt like knowledge coming from somewhere outside the boy himself. She started keeping careful notes in August 1856, the same month he moved in. Every day, she wrote down what he said, what he predicted, and what actually happened. The results left her stunned. He could draw the inside of the human body perfectly without ever opening a book. He could tell her someone in the village was about to get sick weeks before the first fever hit. He knew private, shameful things about total strangers, the kind of secrets people take to their graves. "How?" she kept asking. "How do you know?" His answer never changed. "The voices come from the swamp. They're people who died angry, or hurting, or with truth still stuck in their throats. They talk to me because I can hear them. Mama said, it's been in our blood for generations. It's a gift, Dr. Monroe. But most days it feels heavier than any chain." The first death after Samuel came to live with her happened in September 1856. A rich planter named Marcus Thornton rode into Meow Creek on business. He stopped by the doctor's house complaining of stomach trouble. The minute Samuel saw him in the parlor, the boy froze. Then he backed away like the man carried fire. "You shouldn't be here," Samuel said, voice low but steady. "The voices are screaming. They say you killed 3 little children, 2 boys and 1 girl. You put them in the ground behind your big house where the slave graves don't have names. Their mamas still walk at night, looking for them." Thornton's face went dead white, then purple with fury. "How dare this pickaninny talk to me like that?" he roared. "Woman, control your property, or I'll have the boy whipped for insolence." Dr. Monroe stood up slowly. "He is not property, Mr. Thornton. He is under my roof and my protection. Please leave my house. Now." Thornton stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows shook. 3 days later, a rider came with news. Marcus Thornton had been found dead in his carriage on the way home. Official cause: heart failure. But Dr. Monroe went to see the body herself. His eyes stared wide open, mouth stretched in a silent scream. And there were faint purple marks around his throat, like small fingers had squeezed. No one else had been in that carriage. When she got home and told Samuel, the boy only nodded. The children were waiting for him on the road. He said quietly. The voices said, "It was time." Dr. Monroe felt ice slide down her back. "Samuel, did you do this?" He looked straight at her and shook his head. "I didn't touch him. I just knew. When someone owes blood, the debt always gets paid. I'm only the one who hears the bill coming due. Later, when people finally dug in the old cemetery behind Thornton's plantation, they found exactly what Samuel had described: the bones of 3 small children, 2 boys, around 8 and 10 years old, and a little girl, no more than 6. The marks on those bones told a story far worse than hard work and poor food. The enslaved people on that plantation, once they knew they could speak safely, told stories of children taken to the big house at night and never seen again. Samuel had never been within 20 miles of that place, yet he had known every detail the moment Thornton walked through the door. That was only the beginning. The second death came just a few weeks later, in October. Reverend Silas Jameson was the most respected preacher in Meow Creek. Every Sunday he stood in the pulpit talking about love, mercy, and God's kindness. But during the week he made extra money helping plantation owners buy and sell enslaved people. He took a cut of every sale, and he was the one who decided which child went with which mother, or whether a family got torn apart forever. To the white folks in town, he was a saint. To the black folks, he was a wolf wearing a pastor's collar. One afternoon, Dr. Monroe took Samuel to the general store for sugar and cloth. Reverend Jameson spotted them and walked over with his big fake smile. "Dr. Monroe," he said sweetly, "so good to see you doing the Lord's work with this little pickaninny. Just be careful, teaching them too much only makes them unhappy with the place God gave them." Samuel looked straight up at the preacher and spoke in that calm, grown-up voice everyone was starting to fear. "You don't believe in God anymore," the boy said. "The voices told me you stopped the night you sold a mama and her baby to 2 different plantations. She hanged herself from a tree 3 days later. The baby died a month after that, crying for her. You tell people it was just business, but every night you hear that woman screaming in your sleep. You drink laudanum to shut her up, but she never stops. The voices say your time is almost here, and you'll have to stand in front of every person you broke." The smile fell off Jameson's face like it had been slapped away. For a second he looked like a cornered animal. "That child is full of devils," he spat. "He's speaking wicked lies. Doctor, you're inviting evil into your house." Then he hurried out of the store, hands shaking so hard he dropped his gloves. 2 weeks later, a servant found the Reverend dead at his desk. An empty laudanum bottle sat beside him. The coroner called it suicide, said the preacher had been overcome by sadness. But Dr. Monroe saw the body. His eyes were wide open, full of the same terror she'd seen before. On the desk were half-written letters begging forgiveness from people he had hurt years earlier. One was to a woman named Sarah, apologizing for selling her and her infant son to different buyers 15 years ago. The letter stopped in the middle of a sentence. Like something had scared him so badly he swallowed the whole bottle rather than finish writing. When Dr. Monroe got home, Samuel was sitting in the parlor, quietly turning pages in a reader she had given him. He couldn't carry it anymore, Samuel said without looking up. The voices followed him day and night, calling out every name he sold, every family he split. They showed him what happened to Sarah's baby, how the little boy cried himself to death on a rice plantation far away. The preacher knew it was wrong the whole time. He just loved money more than mercy. The voices don't let that kind of debt go unpaid. Dr. Monroe sat down hard. She was a doctor. She believed in facts, not spirits. But fact after fact was piling up in front of her, and none of them made sense by the rules she knew. "Samuel," she said, "people are dying after they meet you. Even if you're not laying a hand on them, folks are noticing. They're starting to call you cursed. If this keeps happening, I won't be able to keep you safe. They'll say you're a witch, or worse." The little boy closed his book and looked at her with eyes that seemed 100 years old. "I know," he said softly. "Mama always told me to keep quiet, never let white folks see too much. My people have been hiding this gift for generations because it scares those in power. But sometimes the voices get so loud I have to speak. Sometimes what they show me is so evil that staying quiet would make me part of it. I didn't ask to hear them, Dr. Monroe, but I do. And they say I'm here for a reason, even if that reason gets me killed. The deaths kept coming. A slave named William Drake bragged all over town about how many runaways he'd dragged back in chains. 2 days after, Samuel saw him on the street and whispered, "That man has killed 12 people trying to reach freedom." Drake's horse went crazy for no reason, threw him headfirst into a tree, and broke his neck instantly. Catherine Bellamy ran a boarding house where newly bought slaves were kept before being sent to the fields. Everyone knew people who caused trouble got sick fast in her place. A week after, Samuel looked at her in the market and said, "She puts poison in the food when folks won't stop crying for their children." Mrs. Bellamy was found dead, in her bed, face twisted in a scream. No mark on her, like the fear itself had stopped her heart. Every single time, the coroner found a natural cause: heart attack, accident, suicide. But everyone paying attention saw the same pattern. Only the cruelest people died. And Samuel always knew it was coming. To the white townspeople, the boy was becoming a nightmare. They whispered that he carried death in his shadow, and that Dr. Monroe was crazy for keeping him. To the enslaved folks, it was different. They started calling him Little Judge, or the Truth Teller. Some said he was an angel sent to balance the scales. Others believed the ancestors walked with him. Mothers would quietly touch his sleeve for blessing when no white person was looking. Old Jeremiah, the same elder who had warned everyone back on the Whitmore plantation that Samuel was born with the site, had been sold to a farm not far away. One evening he walked miles through the dark to knock on Dr. Monroe's back door. He asked to see the child alone. Dr. Monroe let them sit on the porch. Together, Jeremiah took Samuel's small hands in his rough ones and spoke low. "I knew your grandmama," he said. "She had the listening gift too. They burned her as a witch when she was only 16 because she told a master his wife was poisoning him slow. Boy, you stronger than all of us put together, but you carrying a heavier load than any child ought to carry. The voice is choosing you to speak for the ones who can't speak no more. But you listen to old Jeremiah now. The day is comin' when they won't let you live. When enough powerful men drop dead, they're gonna come for you with fire and rope. You gotta be ready." Samuel only nodded, those dark eyes steady and sad. "I know, Uncle Jeremiah. The voices already told me how it ends." And that's what scared Dr. Monroe more than anything else. Old Jeremiah came looking for Samuel. One evening in February 1857, he found the boy sitting alone at the edge of the swamp behind Dr. Monroe's house, just staring out over the black water and the crooked cypress trees. "Boy," Jeremiah said gently, easing himself down on the log beside him, "we need to talk about what's inside you." Samuel didn't even turn. "You're going to tell me about the old people," he said. "The ones who came across the water with the power still in their blood. You're going to say this thing I carry ain't new, and it sure ain't evil. It's just part of us." Jeremiah let out a long breath. "That's right. Your mama had it. Her mama had it. Goes all the way back to the coast, back to the griots and the healers, and the ones who could talk to the ones who passed on. The white folks tried to whip it out of us, tried to scare it quiet. But some families held on. They passed it down in the dark, in whispers, the way your mama passed it to you." He took Samuel's small hand in his rough one. "What you got, child? Some call it second sight. Some call it the listening gift. Some say the ancestors just talk louder through you. Don't matter what name it's given. It's real, and in this world, real power in black skin is the most dangerous thing there is." Samuel listened without moving while Jeremiah told him stories he had never heard before about men and women in Africa who could see sickness before it showed on the body, about wise ones who carried messages from the dead, about whole villages that kept the old ways alive, even after the ships came. For the first time, Samuel understood that what he carried wasn't a mistake or a punishment. It was a piece of something ancient that had crossed an ocean and refused to die. "But you listen close now," Jeremiah said, voice dropping low. They're already afraid of you. They're afraid because you prove every lie they tell about us being less. And now you're showing them something bigger power they can't buy, can't beat out of you, can't control. One day soon, child, they're gonna come for you. When enough of their guilty men fall down dead, they'll bring torches and rope. You gotta learn when to close your mouth and look small. You gotta learn how to live long enough to matter. Samuel nodded, but his eyes stayed on the dark water. I hear you, Uncle Jeremiah, but the voices, they getting louder every day. They showing me things coming, big things. Fire and blood across the whole country. Chains breaking, but new chains coming right after. And they keep showing me how my own story ends. Quick and bright, like a candle somebody snuffs out. Jeremiah felt a chill he couldn't shake. He squeezed the boy's hand one last time and left without another word. A month later, in March 1857, everything Samuel believed about himself got turned upside down. A new slave trader rolled into Meow Creek with 20 people in chains, planning a big sale. His name was Benjamin Cole, and he was dying cancer, eating him from the inside, slow and sure. He came to Dr. Monroe's door, begging for something to ease the pain. The second Samuel laid eyes on him, the voices exploded in the boy's head, not with anger, not with judgment, but with pure alarm. He's like you, they screamed. He hears too. He sees too. But he turned it wrong. He looks into hurting people and finds the exact place to twist the knife so they sell for more money. He's the warning, Samuel. He's what you could become if you ever choose wrong. Samuel went white and started shaking so hard. Dr. Monroe thought he was having a fit. Cole stared at the boy with sick, yellow eyes that understood too much. So the stories are true, he said, almost laughing. Little black boy who knows when folks are gonna die. I can feel it on you, same as I feel it on myself. We're the same, you and me. Both born with eyes that see past the skin. I just figured out how to make a living with it. You still pretending yours is holy. Samuel's voice came out raw. I ain't nothing like you. You look at broken people and break them more. You sell hope by the pound. Cole shrugged, pain twisting his face. Hope don't pay bills, boy. The gift don't come with rules written on it. You use yours to scare bad men into the grave. I use mine to put food on my table. Don't dress your way up in righteousness just because it feels better. After Dr. Monroe sent Cole away with a bottle of laudanum and the truth that he had maybe 6 months left, she found Samuel sitting on the porch steps, staring at nothing. What if he's right? The boy whispered. What if the voices ain't ancestors or justice at all? What if it's just me so mad and hurt that I want people to suffer, and my mind makes up reasons why it's okay? Dr. Monroe sat beside him. She thought for a long time before she spoke. I can't tell you where the voices really come from, Samuel. I'm only a doctor, not a preacher or a philosopher. But here's what I know for sure. Every secret you've told me turned out to be true. Every person who died had blood on their hands. Blood you never touched. Cole uses whatever gift he has to hurt people who are already down. You use yours to name hurt that's been hidden. Maybe that's not the same thing as pure goodness. But it's a long, long way from evil. It helped a little, but not enough. After that day, Samuel grew quieter. He still heard everything the voices said. He just stopped telling most of it. He would wake up crying from dreams he wouldn't talk about. He spent more time alone by the swamp, listening to water and wind and things no one else could hear. And the deaths kept coming. Only now Samuel didn't warn anybody first. The town got angrier, the whispers got louder, and everyone black and white started waiting for the day when the fear would finally turn into fire. Benjamin Cole died in May 1857. The cancer finally won, 3 days after they buried him. A letter arrived at Dr. Monroe's door, written in a shaking hand. Cole had mailed it the day before he passed. In that letter he told everything. Page after page of names, ages, dates, and plantations, 20 years of people he had bought and sold. He wrote exactly how he did it, how he used the same kind of sight Samuel had, only turned inside out. He could look at a crying mother and know the one word that would make her stop fighting. He could look at a proud man and find the fear that would break him quiet. He used the gift to turn human beings into dollars. At the very end of the letter he wrote, "That boy saw straight through me the first second we met. I thought I was smart, making my way in a hard world. But when he looked at me, I saw the monster I'd turned into. The cancer in my guts is nothing next to the rot in my soul. Tell Samuel Carter he was right about me from the beginning. Tell him he's better than I ever was. Tell him never to twist the gift the way I did, no matter how much money or safety it looks like it could buy. The papers with this letter, give them to the people up north who try to put families back together. It won't wash my sins away, but maybe it keeps a few more children from growing up never knowing their mamas." Dr. Monroe sat up all night, copying every name and every detail, then sealed the copies and sent them north through people she trusted, quiet folks who moved escaped slaves toward Canada. The original pages she locked away. When she read the letter to Samuel the next morning, the boy listened without blinking. Something inside him settled, and something else cracked open at the same time. Cole had proved the gift could be used for pure evil, but he had also proved that even a man who spent his life doing evil could still choose, at the very end, to do one right thing. Summer came. Dr. Monroe kept teaching writing, medicine, history. The boy soaked it up like dry ground takes rain, but the visions changed. They stopped being about single guilty people and started showing him the whole country on fire. Armies marching, fields full of dead boys in blue and gray, black soldiers fighting for freedom that would come wrapped in new chains. He saw the long, long road after slavery laws written to look fair but built to keep black folks down. Generation after generation of the same fight, wearing different clothes. The pictures wore him thin. He stopped eating much. He woke up screaming some nights, shaking so hard Dr. Monroe had to hold him like a baby. "They're showing me too much now," he whispered one night, sweat soaking the sheets. "Not just one bad man anymore. The whole future. War coming. Blood everywhere. Freedom coming, but slow and mean and never all the way. They say it goes on and on. I'm tired, Dr. Monroe. I'm only 7 and I'm so tired." She rocked him the way his mama once had. "You're still a little boy," she said. "You're not supposed to carry all that." "I stopped being little the day Mama died," he answered. "The voices don't ask how old you are. They just talk." Then came September 1857, the 9th and final death in Meow Creek. Judge Albert Crane was the most powerful man in the parish. For 30 years he had sat on the bench and ruled that black people were property, nothing more. He sent men to the gallows for looking at a white woman too long. He ordered children sold away from their parents for talking back. He wrote long, fancy opinions, explaining why none of it was cruel, only necessary. Dr. Monroe was invited to a big house for a medical lecture, and, against every rule of polite society, she brought Samuel with her. She didn't like leaving him alone anymore. The minute Samuel walked into the parlor and saw Judge Crane holding court by the fireplace, the voices hit him like a storm. He couldn't hold the words in. "You hung a man named Thomas for killing the overseer who was raping his 15-year-old daughter," Samuel said, loud enough for the whole room to hear. "You stood there and watched him drop and said, 'A slave has no right to protect his own child.' 47 people you sent to the rope. 213 you ordered whipped till the bones showed. Hundreds more sold away crying. Every single one of them is waiting for you right now. Your time is up, Judge, and it won't be gentle." Dead silence fell. Glasses stopped halfway to mouths. Judge Crane went purple. "Seize that boy," he roared. "I'll have him flogged in the public square for threatening an officer of the court." Men started toward Samuel, faces ugly with drink and rage. Dr. Monroe stepped in front of the child, straight-backed and fierce. "Touch him, and you answer to me," she said, voice cutting like a scalpel. "The boy is ill. He doesn't know what he's saying. He just threatened my life," Crane shouted. "He'll be in irons by morning." Dr. Monroe didn't argue anymore. She grabbed Samuel's hand and walked out while the whole party yelled after them. As soon as they were home, she started packing. "You're leaving tonight," she told him. "Crane will send a posse, maybe a rope, and no questions. I've already spoken to friends. There's a wagon leaving before dawn that will take you north safe houses all the way to Philadelphia and then Canada, if you want it." Samuel looked at her with those old, sad eyes. "Running won't save the judge," he said quietly. "He'll be dead in 3 days, no matter where I am." The voices already called his name. "But you're right, he have to go. Not for him. For me." Dr. Monroe knelt, so they were eye to eye. "I wish I could keep you safe here," she said, voice cracking for the first time. "I wish the world was better than this." Samuel put his small hand on her cheek. "The world's never been kind to children who see too much," he said. "Mama told me that the day she knew I was born different. But you gave me a home when nobody else would. You treated me like a person. That counts for more than you know." Outside, thunder rolled over the swamp like distant drums. 3 nights later, Judge Albert Crane was found dead in his bed, eyes wide, mouth open in a scream that never came out. Purple marks around his throat like fingerprints no living hand had made. By then Samuel Carter was already gone, riding north in the dark, carrying voices that would never be quiet and a gift the world wasn't ready to understand. That very night, Dr. Monroe made the hardest choice of her life. She called in favors from people who moved in the shadows, quiet men and women who guided runaway slaves north under the cover of darkness. They came after midnight with a wagon hidden under hay and blankets. Dr. Monroe handed Samuel a small bundle, a set of forged papers that said he was a freeborn black child traveling with permission, a little money sewn into the lining of his coat, and sealed letters to friends in Philadelphia and Boston who would hide him and teach him. She knelt and hugged him tight. This thin little boy who had turned her whole world upside down. "Will I see you again?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Samuel gave her the smallest, saddest smile. "The voices show me lots of roads, Dr. Monroe. In some we meet again. In most we don't. But in every single one, I carry you with me. You looked at me and saw a person first, and a miracle second. Nobody else ever did that. I'll never forget." Then he climbed into the wagon and disappeared into the Louisiana night, headed toward a freedom that still felt dangerous and incomplete. 3 days later, just like Samuel said, Judge Albert Crane was found dead at his desk in the courthouse. The doctor who examined him wrote stroke on the certificate, but the men who washed the body for burial told a different story. Eyes frozen wide open, mouth stretched in a scream that never came out, and right before he died, people in the hallway swore they heard a chorus of voices, maybe hundreds all, talking at once, too low to make out the words. The black folks who heard about it didn't need the words. They knew whose voices those were. Dr. Monroe kept practicing medicine in Meow Creek until the war came. When Union troops took Louisiana in 1862, she treated soldiers from both sides without asking which flag they carried. All through those years she kept writing in her journals, trying to make sense of the boy who had lived under her roof for 13 strange months. She finally decided Samuel might have been something new, the human mind cooked up to survive being treated as less than human, an early warning system, a way for an entire people to spot danger and fight back when no one else would. But late at night, she admitted she still wasn't sure. Maybe the ancestors really did talk through him. Maybe love and pain together can make a bridge between this world and whatever comes. Next, Dr. Monroe died in 1891, before she passed. She sent her 2 thick journals to a medical college in Philadelphia with a note, "Lock them away for 50 years." She didn't want hunters coming after Samuel while he might still be alive. The journals were unsealed. In 1941, doctors and scientists read them and argued for decades. Some called it the best documented case of extrasensory perception they'd ever seen. Others said it was mass hysteria and coincidence. Nobody could explain it cleanly. As for Samuel himself, he didn't vanish. In the late 1850s, people started telling stories up north about a quiet, black boy who could walk into a sick room and tell you exactly what was wrong without ever going to medical school. In the war years, Union officers wrote home about a young black scout who always seemed to know where the next ambush was coming from, who walked battlefields after the shooting stopped, talking to dead soldiers like he was taking dictation. After the war, wherever white mobs burned black neighborhoods or strung black men from trees, survivors sometimes spoke of a thin man with old eyes who showed up the next day, walking through the ashes writing down names nobody else bothered to record. One of the clearest stories comes from 1873 in Colfax, Louisiana, where a white mob murdered somewhere between 60 and 150 black men trying to vote. An old survivor named Isaiah Freeman told an interviewer in 1920 that a man named Samuel spent the whole night among the bodies. He walked slow, like he was listening, Freeman said. Every now and then he'd stop, write something in a little book, and nod like somebody just told him their name. I asked him why he was doing that, he said, so nobody can say these men never lived. The paper might burn, the courthouse might lie, but what I'm writing down will outlast all of it. I asked how he could stand being around so much death. He looked at me with eyes older than sin and said, "I've been keeping company with the dead since I was 4. They're kinder than most of the living." The last anybody can point to for sure is 1899 in Wilmington, North Carolina, after white supremacists overthrew the city government and slaughtered black citizens in the streets. A newspaper editor named Alexander Manley had to run for his life. But before he left, he met a man going the opposite way into the smoke, carrying a notebook. Manley asked his name. "I've worn a lot of names," the man said. "Mama gave me Samuel. Means God has heard. I'm still hoping she was right." After that, the trail goes cold. Some say he finally died and the voices let him rest. Some say he learned how to turn the voices down and lived quiet under a new name. Others swear on their Bibles he's still out there, older than time, walking back roads and city alleys with a pencil and a little book, writing down every name the world tries to erase. Dr. Monroe's very last journal entry, written the week before she died, says it best. "I spent years trying to fit Samuel into science. Maybe I had it backward. Maybe the point was never to explain how he did what he did. Maybe the point was simply that he existed at Ola, black child born into chains, who carried proof that our people are more than the world wants us to be, whether the voices were spirits or just the sharpened edge of a soul that refused to be broken. The result was the same. Cruelty got named out loud, suffering got witness, and justice, shut out by every court and church, still found a way to knock on the door. Samuel Carter walked through a country that did its best to kill or silence brilliance in black skin, and he refused to go quiet. That, in the end, might be the greatest miracle of all.